Welcome to the Vertical MRO Alerts, brought to you by Bell. Here's a quick look at notable service directives recently released from Bell Aircraft.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to the MRO Alerts presented by Bell. My name is Marc Dubé. I'm a product support engineering manager for Bell. I'm here today with Mr. Gilbert Gaudreault. Gilbert is one of the product support engineering leads for Bell, working in the PSC team. Today, we want to take a little bit of time to discuss a specific service directive that was initially released in 2024, but that just got revised a couple of weeks ago. And the subject is the 407 Tailboom attachment hardware and fitting. And it's the inspection of that tailboom joint to the fuselage joint. So first of all, Gilbert, since we released this one a couple years, last year basically, maybe just start by summarizing what the original release of the ESB was and the reason behind it.
So the ESB 4724-134 was published to address a safety concern following a report of a broken upper left bolt. That specific ESB, the initial version, was a 3-part ESB. First part was pretty much to decide if you had the original longeron on your aircraft or if you had a longeron that was replaced per TB 1296 or 17125.
So obviously a lot of TBs in there, a lot of information. What the concern was really after a report of a fractured upper left-hand attachment bolts, basically, that we wanted to go see that joint, and then we added some recurring inspection, basically, for the aircrafts.
And the recurring inspection that we have introduced, while doing the part 1, you were redirect to part 2 or part 3 of the ASB.
Yep.
And within part 2, it was the one if you had the longeron replaced. And in that specific one, you needed to replace your upper left bolt every 300 hours of flight and do a torque check of the other attachment bolt. And if you had the original longeron, you needed to go to the part 3 of the ASB, which was pretty much a torque check, but every 50 hours. So the interval was shorter, but we never had any broken bolt on original longeron. That's why the emphasis was more put on the one that had the longeron replaced in the field per TPs.
Okay, so original longeron, less critical, but the ones replaced, a little bit more concerned. So that's why we wanted to address those. So following that, we did additional work, obviously. And today, roughly almost a month ago, we decided to revise the original ESB. So with revision A, can you describe a little bit what the revision introduces as far as instructions?
So the new revision, the revision A, is the terminating action of the whole ESB 24-134, which is a new part, the part 4 of the ESB, and it needs to be done within 600 hours and 12 months. We tried to give people a little bit of time to accomplish it. You can do it before that, but you still have a little bit of time to plan it. And the thing is, we have less concern since you're doing a recurring inspection or a bolt replacement. That's why we could let people fly a little bit more before to do the terminating action. And these terminating action will pretty much remove the recurring inspection per part 2 and part 3, which is the replacement of your bolt or the short interval 50-hour torque check for the original longeron.
Okay, so what are we doing more specifically with the revision? What action are we taking on the aircraft?
At the beginning, you remove the access panel on the right-hand side of the aircraft, close to the attachment of the Tailboom. You, with the bolt installed, you check with the filler gauge that you cannot insert that specific 3 thou filler gauge for more than 850 thou. We don't think we'll catch that much aircraft with that specific measurement and gap, but this is a kind of a go, no go. If with the bolt install, you have that kind of gap, we'll need to investigate more. That's why we have that specific gap. And then if you don't have any gap like that, you need pretty much to remove the tailboom assembly, inspect both sides with tailboom remove, check for crack, loose rivet and stuff like that. And if you don't find anything discrepant, you can reinstall the tailboom with new hardware, because on the 4.7, every time you remove the tailboom, you need to replace the hardware. So you need to put new hardware.
That's in the maintenance manual, correct?
Yeah.
So other question that we've seen, or some customers have reached after the release of the ESB, the aircraft that are equipped with the two-piece longeron installed from factory, some of these aircraft were initially not affected by the original release of the ESB, but now they are affected by revision 8. Can you give a little bit of information on that, why these aircraft are now affected?
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's to capture potential quality escape on these aircraft. We're talking about 125 aircraft, kind of. It's if your aircraft 54873 up to the clean point, which is 56301. So these aircraft didn't have the initial safety concern, but we have a quality escape that we were made aware of, and we needed to address with the revision of the ESB to be able to have like a real clean point on these tailboom attachment issue, let's say.
All right. So since that's the terminating action, technically, it's just for those aircraft and also the other aircrafts, it's the terminating action, but a bit more specifically for those added aircraft, it's sort of a one-time check that you want to do. And then we have a clean point going forward. So that was kind of the intent. Okay. So the other one that we're getting questions on is there a sealant between the aft bulkhead and the upper left fitting?
So the short answer is no. It should not have any sealant between this at this mating surface, between the bulkhead, the aft bulkhead of the fuselage, and the aft fitting of the longeron. We needed to address this particular situation within the ESB Part 4. It's specific on one step due to recommendation from the NTSB, because on the longeron that had were replaced in the field, we have found a sealant at that specific location. And this is because one of the TB was not specific enough that you should not put sealant on that specific mating surface. But from production, we never put any sealant there. So it's only for the aircraft that were, let's say, affected by longeron replaced in the field.
Okay, good point. And then the other one that we have is for ESB 4724-134, a revision A, is that the ESB is still required if a customer replaces an upper left longeron per the TB 407-17-125 revision A. So the instruction on how to replace the longeron is basically that ESB still required following the terminating action of the ESB.
So no, the main reason is because the TB 47-17-125 Rev A introduced clarification to the installation instruction of the two-piece longeron and additional check to capture, let's say, improper installation along the way. So because of that, you don't really need to redo the ESB 24-134 after that.
So that TB, the one TB 125, basically has been revised also. The concern again was for the original release of the TB, where some instructions were not maybe clear enough, and then these have been cleared out in the revision A. So as long as customers are using the latest TB 125 Rev A, we're okay. I mean, and also I think there's a note with the previous TB that we had released in the past. Yeah,
you're right. The TB 471296 was superseded by the TB 4717-125. So you cannot install the old 237B longeron anymore because you could only install them per 1296.
Yeah.
So now you only the only option is to install the latest and greatest configuration, the same that we install in production, which is the 2-piece long drawn per TB 17125 Rev A with the improved instruction.
All right. That clarifies.
So, and I have like an example of that specific one that you don't need to redo the Rev A. So let's say you have like a lot of people have analog aircraft.
Yep.
You still have your original long draw because based on the data we had less than 100 long drawn that were replaced in the field. So on a population of maybe a 1900 4.7.
Yeah.
So an analog aircraft with the original long drawn. So based on the initial version of the ASB 4.7/24/134, you needed to do the 50-hour torque check.
Yeah.
So you were doing that. Now the revision A came out, so you can do the terminating action to get rid of that recurring inspection.
Yeah.
You do the part 4, and then you're good. You don't need to do a different recurring inspection per that ASB. And if at one point, for one reason, that original long drawn, which is an older one, is damaged, you can replace it by using the TB 4.7/17/125 Rev A, and you'll have the new 2-piece long drawn. But the ASB 24/134, you don't need to touch it anymore because you have the latest instruction.
All right.
TB.
All right. Thanks, Gilbert. A lot of TBs, a lot of ASBs involved, obviously. So it could be confusing, but anyway, any questions, make sure that you contact productsupport@bellflight.com. We can help you clarify stuff. Last question that we have is, do we have recurrent inspection required following accomplishment of the ASB 4.7/24/134 Rev A Part 4, which we kind of touched on, but just to make sure that everybody understood, is there any recurring inspection after compliance of the latest version?
So since it is the terminating action, there is no recurring inspection required by following the part 4 completion. However, the 4.7 MPI Chapter 5, the 300-hour schedule inspection, which is a torque check every 300 hours, is still applicable. It was still applicable with all these ESBs and all that, but now this is the only recurring inspection that you need to do pretty much after all that.
All right. So everything that's recurring, again, in the ASB is no longer applicable, but you do have that 4.7 MPI Chapter 5 300 hour that you have to do. So the torque check. So that kind of clarifies that portion also. I believe that's all we had to say today in regards to ESB 4.7/24/134. Again, that's for the tailboom attachment hardware and fitting inspection of. Lots of information. There's at least 2-3 revision of different bulletins, TBs, and the ASB involved. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Contact productsupport@bellflight.com. We'll help you. You can call our line. We'll help you also. That's all for us today. Thanks a lot, Gilbert, for being with me for this MRO Alert podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more MRO Alerts podcasts and keep flying Bell.
This has been a Vertical MRO Alert brought to you by Bell. As always, please make sure to look at the service directive for complete information.